The day my parents divorced, the judge asked them to choose between me and my little brother. Without hesitation, they both chose him. But then, my brother ran over, grabbed my skirt, and stammered, "Sis, will you take care of me instead?" Everyone was stunned. I looked down and gave a faint smile. "Little brother, I may be an adult, but I have no legal obligation to raise you," I said calmly, then added with a cold laugh, "unless both our parents were dead." My father exploded. "You brat? Are you wishing us dead?" He moved toward me, but my mother stopped him, whispering that hitting me in court would only cause a scandal. I blinked innocently. "Your Honor, am I wrong?" The judge didn't respond. Instead, he turned to my brother. "Don't you want to live with your dad or mom? Are they not good to you?" My brother looked at our parents, then back at me. "They're great. But I want to live with my sister." I stared at him, unamused. First, I'm only 19 and still in college. Second, I'm not your legal guardian. And third, I don't have money to feed a little money pit like you. To everyone's surprise, my normally obedient brother threw a tantrum. "I don't care. I want my sister." The courtroom fell silent. Everyone had just seen how my parents fought over him and ignored me. Now, their favorite child was choosing the daughter they'd barely acknowledged. My mother snapped, "What lies have you been feeding him?" I was speechless, blamed for something I didn't do. Then I smiled faintly. "Maybe it's because you two are always fighting. Maybe he's traumatized." The judge and others exchanged glances. Even my parents looked down, knowing it was true. My mother sighed, "Emma, what do you want?" I lifted my brother onto my lap and asked instead, "Are you still getting divorced?" "Yes," they answered in unison, avoiding each other's gaze. "You really don't want to go with mom or dad?" I asked my brother. "If you live with me, you might go hungry." To my surprise, he pulled a bear-shaped cookie from his pocket. "Sister won't be hungry. I'll collect trash if I have to." That was unnecessary, but touching. Still, my mother objected. "Is your place even livable?" Now I was angry. If I wasn't pretending to be poor, I could have pulled out a stack of property deeds right then. My brother clung to me tightly. My parents panicked. "Tyler, Mommy won't remarry. I'll only love you," my mom pleaded. "Tyler, didn't you want to go to the amusement park?" My dad offered. I had enough. "I won't only love you. I can't take you to parks. I live in a rundown apartment. Choose." Without hesitation, he repeated, "I want my sister," 3 times. Instead of taking control, my parents turned to threaten me. "Take good care of him, or else." I cut them off coldly. "Or else what? I'm your daughter too. I'm not his nanny." Looking at their shocked faces, I added, "How I take care of him is none of your business." Later, I took my brother with me. In the car, he tugged my skirt. "Sis?" I answered with a soft and made a call. "Mr. Hudson, please send 10 sets of clothes for a 9-year-old boy, 1 set for each season. Deliver to Skylight Bay. Ask Mrs. Lee to clean the house and stock the fridge. I'm moving back tonight." "Yes, miss," came the reply. My brother gaped. "Aren't you poor? 10 sets?" "Yes," I smiled. "So poor I can only buy you 10 sets. In reality, it was 40. He stared in disbelief as I led him into my rundown apartment. The living room was elegant, marble floors, crystal table, plush sofa, and fresh fruit on display. He blinked at the space and mumbled, "So, this is what a rundown apartment looks like?" Finally, he realized he'd been tricked. Tyler's little hands gripped my arm as if letting go meant losing everything. I had never seen him this desperate before. My heart twisted, but I kept my expression neutral. I had learned long ago that showing emotion only gave our parents more ways to manipulate me. As we stepped out of the courtroom, the murmur of the crowd followed us like an echo of judgment. I felt eyes burning into my back, some sympathetic, others disapproving, most simply curious. What kind of parents fight over who doesn't get custody of their daughter? In the hallway, Tyler stayed quiet. His earlier tantrum had exhausted him. I crouched down to his level and looked him in the eye. "Tyler, why me? Why not mom or dad? You know they'd give you more things, more toys, more attention." He looked down and whispered, "But they fight too much. It's loud. I can't sleep. You're quiet, like grandma." That hit me hard. Grandma had raised me for most of my early childhood while our parents were too busy climbing corporate ladders and hosting charity banquets. After she passed, I became invisible. I sighed. All right, for now. But no promises, okay? He nodded solemnly, like he understood more than a child his age should. That evening, we stopped at a quiet cafe before heading home. I needed time to think, and he needed food that wasn't shaped like cartoon characters. Tyler sat across from me, swinging his legs, carefully sipping hot chocolate. I was about to speak when he asked, "Do you hate them?" I didn't answer immediately. I didn't want to lie, but I didn't want to be cruel either. I don't hate them. I just stopped expecting them to care, I finally said. Tyler was quiet again. Then, if I grow up, will I stop caring too? My breath caught. I hope not, I said softly. But I hope you learn to care about the right people. Later, at home, or rather, the rundown apartment, Tyler explored cautiously, opening doors, peeking into rooms. When he found the guest bedroom fully made, with a stuffed bear already on the bed, he gasped. "You prepared this? Before the court?" I ruffled his hair. I had a feeling the little money pit would be stubborn. He grinned, showing the gap where one of his front teeth had recently fallen out. "I'm your favorite money pit now, huh?" I smirked, "Don't let it go to your head." But as I stood at the doorway that night watching him sleep peacefully for the first time in a long time, I realized something terrifying. I had just become the only adult in this boy's life who hadn't let him down. And the weight of that truth settled on my shoulders, heavier than anything I'd ever known. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of soft footsteps, and the unmistakable clatter of kitchen cabinets. For a moment, I panicked, then I remembered, Tyler. I stumbled into the kitchen, hair a mess, wearing my oversized college hoodie. There he was, standing on a stool, attempting to pour cereal into a bowl twice his size. "You're going to flood the kitchen in milk," I murmured, rubbing my eyes. He turned, proudly holding up a crooked spoon. "I was making breakfast for you." I stared at him for a moment before sighing and grabbing the carton from his hands. "Let's make sure the cereal stays in the bowl, little chef." We ended up having breakfast on the balcony, overlooking the quiet street. The sun was warm, and for a few minutes, it almost felt like I was living a peaceful life. But peace never lasts long when you're dealing with toxic parents. Around noon, my doorbell rang. I didn't have to check the peephole. I knew it was them. I opened the door slowly. My mother stood there in a tailored dress, lips pressed tight. Behind her, my father leaned against the wall, arms crossed, sunglasses hiding his eyes like he was guarding a VIP. "We came to check on Tyler," Mom said, stepping forward without waiting for an invitation. I blocked the doorway. "He's fine." "We still have rights," she snapped. "And I still have boundaries," I replied, voice steady. Tyler peeked from behind the hallway. "Mom?" She lit up like a Christmas tree. "Sweetheart, Mommy came to get you. Pack your things, let's go." He didn't move. "I'm staying with Emma," he said quietly. The silence was brutal. My father's face darkened. "What kind of lies did you feed him?" I folded my arms. "Funny, that's exactly what you said in court when he made his own decision." "We'll talk to our lawyer," my mother hissed, stepping back. "You're not keeping him forever." "Maybe you should have thought about keeping him when the judge asked you who you wanted," I said coldly and shut the door in their faces. Tyler was sitting on the floor, arms around his knees. "Are they mad?" he asked. I sat beside him. "They're always mad at someone. Don't let it be you." He leaned into me. "Will you still let me stay?" I didn't answer right away. Because the truth was, I wasn't sure how long I could keep this going. I had classes, bills, a job at the campus library, and now, a little boy who just wanted peace. But as I looked at his small face, tired, unsure, yet oddly hopeful, I made a quiet promise to myself. Even if the whole world turned against us, I wouldn't. That night, after dinner, mac and cheese with slices of apple, Tyler's new favorite, I found him exploring the hallway like he was searching for hidden treasure. "What are you doing?" I asked, drying my hands with a towel. He looked up, sheepish. "You said earlier there were rooms you didn't use. I thought maybe one had toys." I knelt beside him. "There's no toy room, bud. This isn't a mansion." He tilted his head. "But you're rich, right? You ordered 40 sets of clothes with one call." I smiled faintly. I'm smart with money. That's not the same as rich. He didn't seem convinced, but nodded anyway. I sighed and stood. All right, come with me. I'll show you something. But you have to promise, it stays between us. His eyes widened with excitement. Secret? Very secret. I led him to a door at the end of the hallway, one I hadn't opened in years. Behind it, a dim room filled with dust-covered boxes and forgotten memories. I flipped on the light. What is this place? He asked, peeking inside. It used to be my study, I said. Before life got busy. He stepped in slowly, brushing his fingers over a bookshelf filled with old notebooks, models, even a few trophies from science fairs. You were smart, he whispered. I still am, I said, nudging his shoulder playfully. There was silence as he picked up a framed photo. Me at age 12, grinning with grandma, holding a certificate. He stared at it. Did she love you? I took a breath. Yeah. She really did. I think I'd like her. You would've. Tyler kept wondering. Can I turn this into my room? I blinked. You want this room? It feels safe. I looked around, the dusty curtains, the cracked desk, the smell of mothballs, and then at him. He wasn't thinking about comfort. He was thinking about peace. I ruffled his hair. Then we'll fix it up. For the next 2 hours, we cleaned, wiped, and even danced a little with brooms in hand. Tyler kept laughing, real, unfiltered joy. And somewhere in that messy, dust-filled moment, I realized. This wasn't temporary anymore. This little boy had carved a place in my life, one I hadn't realized I was missing. A week passed. Tyler had adjusted to our rhythm surprisingly fast. He helped me sort laundry, badly, insisted on brushing his teeth with me every night, and even began memorizing the route to his new school, which he would start next week. He was still shy around strangers, flinching at raised voices or sudden sounds, but at home, he smiled more. He was learning to breathe again. And I was learning how to be a guardian I never asked to become. One evening, while Tyler was asleep on the couch, hugging his stuffed bear like a life preserver, I sat at my desk, going through my mail. Bills. Ads. A letter with no return address. Curious, I tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper, typed. No signature. Greater than you think you've won. But you don't know the full story. Keep the boy. Let's see how long you last. I stared at it for a full minute. Then I folded it neatly, locked it in my desk drawer, and poured myself a glass of water to keep my hands from shaking. I didn't tell Tyler. I didn't even tell Mr. Hudson or Mrs. Lee. But the next morning, I installed a security system. Discreet, state-of-the-art, and synced to my phone. I also asked Mrs. Lee to stock up on canned goods and first aid. She didn't question it. She never did. At night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake thinking about that letter. Was it my mother? My father? A lawyer? A threat? A bluff? I didn't know. But what I did know was this. If anyone came for Tyler again, they'd have to go through me. I'd been dismissed and discarded too many times in my life. Not this time. 3 days after the letter, I received a knock at the door, not the doorbell, a knock. Calm. Measured. Dangerous. I checked the security camera. It was a man in a gray suit, holding a briefcase. Not one of my parents. Not someone I recognized. I opened the door a crack. Yes? Emma Blake? He asked, voice smooth and practiced. You've been served. He handed me an envelope and left without another word. I closed the door slowly. Tyler, coloring at the coffee table, looked up. Who was that? Just mail, I said with a forced smile. Go finish your drawing, okay? I opened the envelope at the kitchen counter. My stomach dropped. A petition for emergency custody revocation. Filed by my parents. They were accusing me of emotional manipulation. Of alienating Tyler. Of unfit housing and unstable income. A bold move, considering they'd left him in my arms like forgotten luggage. They wanted him back. Not because they loved him. Because their pride was hurt. I read through the false claims and half-truths until my hands were trembling. Then I grabbed my phone and made a call. Mr. Hudson? I need a lawyer. A good one. The next morning, Tyler found me on the balcony staring blankly at the sky. "You didn't eat breakfast," he said. I turned, managing a smile. "I will. Just thinking." He held up a piece of paper. "I made this." It was a drawing of me and him standing in front of our building, smiling. "This is our house," he explained. "And this is a shield. Because we're safe now." I stared at the crayon shield hovering over our heads and nearly lost it. He noticed my eyes and asked softly, "Are you going to send me back?" I knelt and took his hands in mine. "No. But some people are going to try." He didn't speak. Just nodded. Then he folded the drawing in half and put it in my bag. "Bring it to court," he said. "They'll know it's true." I pulled him into a hug, burying my face in his hair. For the first time, I wasn't just fighting for myself. I was fighting for someone who still believed in me. Court wasn't like the movies. There were no gasps, no dramatic speeches. Just cold fluorescent lights, rigid procedures, and the hum of tension that never quite broke. Tyler sat beside me, legs swinging, wearing the navy blazer Mr. Hudson had sent. He looked so small in that big courtroom. I wanted to shield him with my whole body. Across the room, my parents sat with their lawyer, polished, expensive, and smug. My father looked bored. My mother glanced at us like we were something stuck to her shoe. The judge entered. Everyone stood. The hearing began. Their lawyer was quick to speak. He painted me as a manipulative, inexperienced girl who had stolen her little brother for personal gain. He cited my age, my university enrollment, and my alleged lack of income. He called the apartment questionable housing. I clenched my fists under the table. Then our side presented the evidence. Mr. Hudson calmly listed my assets, my academic scholarships, my private residence ownership, and even letters from my professors supporting my maturity and stability. He handed the judge a certified psychological report stating Tyler's behavior had improved under my care. Then, he placed Tyler's drawing on the stand, filed as Exhibit F. The judge raised an eyebrow. "Miss Blake, can you explain this?" I stood. "Your Honor, my brother made it. I didn't ask him to. He told me to bring it to court because it's what he feels." The courtroom fell silent. The judge studied the crayon shield and two smiling stick figures, then placed it down gently. Finally, they called Tyler to speak. I objected. He was only 9. But the judge allowed it, softly, carefully. Tyler walked to the stand, climbing the step stool. "Tyler," the judge said gently, "can you tell us where you want to live?" He looked at me. Then looked at our parents. And said, clear and steady, "I want to stay with my sister." "Why?" "Because she listens when I talk. She doesn't yell. And she doesn't make me feel like I ruined everything." The words hit like a slap. My mother's lips curled. That's what she told him. She turned him against us. The judge silenced her with a look. No verdict was made that day. It was a preliminary hearing. But as we left the courtroom, I knew we had won the first battle. Tyler held my hand tightly. "Did I mess up?" I shook my head. "No. You were brave." He grinned. I had my shield. A week passed. The final custody hearing was scheduled for Friday morning, and the silence from my parents had been deafening. No more letters. No surprise visits. Just stillness. Which, in our family, was never a good sign. Tyler had settled into his new school. Every day he came home with some little story, about a teacher who gave him a sticker, or a classmate who let him borrow a pencil. For the first time, he seemed like a real kid. Not a shadow of parental failure. Not a trophy. Just Tyler. But I wasn't sleeping. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined my parents' next move. I didn't trust the calm. Not from them. Thursday night, I got a call from Mr. Hudson. "There's been a development," he said. "They're changing their strategy." "How?" I asked, gripping my phone tighter. "They're no longer claiming you're unfit. They're claiming you manipulated Tyler to reject them out of revenge." I let out a short, bitter laugh. "Of course they are. And Emma. They've also submitted a formal claim that you encouraged Tyler to lie in court. If the judge believes that, not only will you lose custody, but they could press for psychological evaluation or even limited contact." My chest tightened. That night, Tyler knocked on my door just as I was pulling blankets over my head. "Can I sleep here tonight?" I hesitated, then nodded. He crawled under the covers beside me and whispered, "Do you think they'll take me away?" I didn't answer right away. "I don't know," I said honestly. "But I won't stop fighting." He looked at me. "Even if it gets worse?" "Especially if it gets worse." He slid his small hand into mine. "Then I'll fight too." And there, under the dim light of my bedroom lamp, I realized something. This wasn't just about custody anymore. It was about breaking the cycle. About rewriting a story that had been unfair since the day I was born. Tomorrow, I'd walk into that courtroom not just as Emma, the discarded daughter, but as Emma, the protector. The courthouse felt colder than usual that Friday. Maybe it was the nerves. Maybe it was the weight of everything riding on this hearing. Tyler clutched his little sketchpad as we walked through security. He didn't speak, but I could tell he was nervous. So was I. The odds had shifted, and now my parents were playing the victim, spinning their years of neglect into hurt feelings and misunderstandings. Inside, the courtroom buzzed. Reporters weren't allowed, but word had spread. People whispered. The family feud with money and drama had become gossip fuel. When the judge entered, we all stood. His gaze swept the room slowly before motioning us to sit. My parents' lawyer opened with dramatic flair. "Your Honor, my clients acknowledge past mistakes, but they have always prioritized Tyler's well-being. They believe Miss Blake, while financially stable, is emotionally motivated to alienate her brother from his parents. They ask the custody revert to the biological parents, with supervised visitation granted to Miss Blake." Then it was our turn. Mr. Hudson stood. Calm. Steady. "Your Honor, the child has made his wishes clear. We do not deny past conflict. But the facts remain, Mr. and Mrs. Blake only filed for custody after their son chose his sister. Before that, they willingly passed responsibility to a 19-year-old college student without preparation or legal agreement." He paused. What changed? Their son's choice? Or their pride? Then came the moment I dreaded. Tyler was asked to speak again. He walked up, slower this time, holding a folded piece of paper. The judge asked gently, "Tyler, do you want to say something?" He unfolded the paper and read. "Greater than I love Mom and Dad. But love isn't enough. They yelled a lot and sometimes forgot I was in the room. I felt like noise to them. With Emma, I feel real. I don't need toys or parks. I need peace. I don't want to hate anyone. I just want to be happy. And I'm happy with her." Silence. I glanced over. My mother's mouth trembled, her expression unreadable. My father just looked away. The judge exhaled and leaned forward. "I believe I have enough to make my decision." The room froze. The air in the courtroom was thick with anticipation. Every shuffle of paper, every throat cleared, every ticking second stretched like a taut wire. The judge adjusted his glasses and looked down at the documents before him. Then up at Tyler. Then at me. "This case is unusual," he began, his voice even. "Rarely do we see a child so young speak with such clarity and sincerity. And rarely do we see parents so eager to shift blame rather than take responsibility." He paused. "Miss Blake," he said, turning his gaze to me, "you are 19. By most standards, barely out of childhood yourself. Yet you've demonstrated maturity, stability, and, most importantly, a consistent prioritization of Tyler's emotional well-being. The court acknowledges the unusual nature of this arrangement, but also its undeniable results." He turned to my parents. "Mr. and Mrs. Blake, you have failed to provide sufficient evidence that Miss Blake manipulated your son or acted in bad faith. What we do have are records of neglect, witness statements describing a volatile home environment, and the child's repeated insistence to remain with his sister." He tapped his gavel once. "Effective immediately, temporary custody of Tyler Blake is awarded to Emma Blake, with full guardianship pending a 6-month evaluation period. Supervised visitation will be arranged for the biological parents, once per month, pending cooperation and compliance." The courtroom erupted into murmurs. Tyler gasped and grabbed my hand so tightly it hurt. His little fingers trembled. My parents sat in stunned silence. My mother's eyes welled with tears, not of sorrow, but of disbelief. My father stood abruptly, as if he could walk away from the ruling. The judge added, "And one final note, custody is not a punishment. It is a responsibility. The court expects all parties to act accordingly. He struck the gavel again. It was done. Outside, the sky had cleared, as if it too had waited for this. Tyler and I stood on the courthouse steps, the world rushing past us in cars and conversations. He looked up at me. So, I'm staying? I nodded. You're staying? He smiled, wide and real. Can we get pancakes? I laughed, for the first time in what felt like weeks. Yes. As many as you want. As we walked down the steps hand in hand, I knew everything ahead wouldn't be easy. But I also knew something else. I wasn't just my parents' forgotten daughter anymore. I was someone's home.